Well, hello, it's Dr. C, and welcome to another episode of Rethinking Christian Education. Again, the purpose of these discussions, the purpose of these discussions are to create a safe space for the Christian education community to learn and grow together. And so today we're going to jump right in and keep in mind our norms that we like and we share, we tag. In fact, tag someone on every episode. Yeah, make them go all the way back to the beginning to catch up with what you've already learned. But yeah, like it, tag someone, tag your director of Christian education, tag your pastor, tag your Sunday school superintendent, and then invite someone to join you tonight. Invite them to join you tonight, and to invite them to join you on subsequent broadcasts as well. Yeah, make some comments. And let me pause right there and say, I really do appreciate your comments. Those of you that I've met in person and you told me that you've been following each week, I appreciate it. I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate you telling me what's working and where you are, and hopefully we can continue to grow together. So make your comments in the chat room, in the chat box, and we'll do our best to get to them. If not immediately, we'll respond to your comments after the broadcast is over. Take some notes, ask some questions, and again, even if you'd like for me to bring these conversations to your congregation, to your fellowship, go to drseymore.com. There's a space where you can email me and drop me a line. Of course, see all the other things that are going on with us, but you can bring me to your congregation to have these conversations with your congregation. And so tonight, let's go ahead and jump in. So we have determined that it's time. This is the best time to rethink Christian education, to rethink how we build disciples, to rethink how we mold disciple makers. We've determined that okay, we've gone back to church and many of them didn't come back, and now we really do have to start over again, or we really do have to rethink our strategy on how we execute ministry, how we build disciples. We've talked about how to build a rethinking team, how to put together a think tank, a solution tank on how do we go forward in ministry, despite the fact that our norms have been disrupted. We've talked about how to identify the new needs of our congregation and our communities. And I'm sure you will agree that individuals have some new needs. They have some thirsts that weren't obvious before. They have some hungers that are right in our faces right now. So we've determined, how do we pinpoint what those needs are in order to better build disciples, in order to strengthen disciples to become disciple makers. We've even talked about how to create our own action plan that fits our congregation, not to mimic someone else, but we've talked about how do we take those needs that we've identified and build a plan to meet those needs within our congregation, within our community, so that they can be stronger disciple makers, so that they can carry the gospel of Jesus Christ out into the world in a competent and efficient way. We've talked about how do we build our own plan. We call that a discipleship model, but we've talked about that. And so today we're going to talk about how do we evaluate our impact? How do we measure whether we're making an impact, how much of an impact we're making, or if we're not making an impact at all? And so by now, the question that's going to guide us, that should be in your head, that's going to guide us is, how do we measure impact? How can we tell if what we're doing is working? And how do we know if we need to scrap something? Or how do we know if we need to adjust what we're doing to meet the needs of our congregation and our communities? And so I'm going to share with you 4 simple ways to measure impact. And so the first step in measuring your ministry's impact is to gather information about your ministry. Gather information and listen, brothers and sisters, don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. Don't be afraid to have those courageous conversations. You got to be thick-skinned about it. And remember, it's not about you. It's not about me, but it is all about meeting the needs of congregations. And so we've got to be willing to ask the questions. We've got to gather some people in the room who may be a member of our congregation and may not, who may be a part of our community and may not. We've got to gather some information about what is it based on what we were supposed to be doing, making disciples, making stronger disciples, disciple makers. We've got to gather information that lets us know if we're doing it, if we're not, and if we are, is there room for improvement? So the first step is to gather information on your work. And remember, when we talked about this whole needs assessment in the very beginning, this is the same thing. It's just on the back end now. And you're going to assess the impact of this work that you've done. So you can take surveys, you can have small group discussions, you can have cohort discussions, you can have one-on-one interviews, group interviews, but you want to gather information that tells us the true story about what it is that we're doing and how well we're doing. And brothers and sisters, what a great time for us to take a look at what we're doing as a body of believers. This is a great time, a great opportunity for us to examine ourselves, our ministries, to determine if we are really about disciple building, or are we, when we talked about those churches, are we one of those programmatic churches that all we're focused on is a program versus building disciples. So the first thing is gather information on the work you're doing. And once you gather information on the work you're doing, you want to create a scorecard or some instrument that evaluates what you're doing. And so in the assessment earlier, we talked about an assessment, we looked at what are those needs that we were going to actually address. And so those needs would be a part of this scorecard. We talked about in that action plan, those objectives and the goals and objectives. Well, the goals and objectives also help build this scorecard. And on this scorecard, it is going to show us what we said we would do, and then show us if we did it and to what degree, or did we not do it. All right. So the second thing is you want to build a scorecard. I call it a scorecard. You may call it an evaluation form. Let's just keep it simple. Put together some instrument that will show us what we said we were going to do in ministry and allows us to compare it to what we actually are doing in ministry or in this work of discipleship. And then the third thing is, once you have put the scorecard together, go ahead now and evaluate your impact. Assess the impact of your work. Did it change anyone's life? Did it impact? Did it cause someone to want to grow closer to Christ? Did it cause someone to want to live a life that is more pleasing to God? Are they finding more authenticity when they are a part of the body of Christ? When they're part of your organization, assess the impact that whatever you've decided to do. Assess what impact is actually made. Analyze what you found. After you've gathered all of the notes from the cohort groups and the interest groups and the one-on-one interviews and the surveys, and you've gathered it all together, now sit and, again, be careful. Don't take this information that you find personal. If the information says that the messages don't speak to me, don't take it personally. If it says that the music does not soothe me or it's not, I'm not feeling any relief from it, don't take it personally. If the information that you find is saying that, gosh, the Bible study is not conducive, it does not speak to anything in my life, don't take it personal. Again, this whole idea of measuring impact is to determine what we're doing and what we need to do to constantly improve. And then once you have analyzed the data, determine what is this information you've gathered, what is it saying, then you want to share these findings with the rest of the congregation. And so you've noticed as we've gone through establishing various teams, we have expanded this work from a few to even more. And so now you want to share this information with your team. How's it going, Reverend Renee Thompson Jones? So good to see you, Minister. But you want to report what you found. And again, don't take it personally, because all of us have a vested interest in improving our discipleship. All of us want to know, what can we do as a collective body to disciple better, to make stronger disciples. And so once you have gathered this information and you've determined what this information is saying, we put our pride in our pocket to hear what the real information is. Share it with your congregation, share the findings, and share it, or report it rather, in simple terms, in terms that everyone in the organization, in the ministry, can understand. If the finding was about the hospitality, make the information plain. Report that the research or the surveys say that our hospitality is not the best. That's an opportunity to improve. If the interviews show that people don't feel welcome, share that information. Don't take it personally. If the information that you found, if your findings show that people cannot connect with God, or they're not having that spiritual experience when they're in your presence, don't take it personally. It's an opportunity to grow. If people are finding that if the information that you find is showing that people are not being equipped, they feel like they're not competent disciple makers, don't take it personally. This is an opportunity to grow. So you want to evaluate your impact on the lives of your congregation and your surrounding community. And then finally, number 4, after you have gathered your information, after you have built a scorecard, after you have evaluated your impact, the last thing you want to do is determine what to do next. You built a plan. You've executed the plan. You have now evaluated its impact. Now determine, what do you need to do next? What do you mean by that, Reverend? Here's what I mean. You want to determine, do we continue the plan as it is written, as it's designed? Do we continue going forward with it nonstop? In fact, do we increase? Do we keep going? Or do we need to make some adjustments to the plan? We're going in the right direction, but do we need to tweak a few things to have greater impact? Or, watch out, do we need to stop and change directions? Do we need to go back to the drawing board? Is there a possibility that what we heard is not what the people were saying? Is there a chance that what we interpreted is not what the people really, really need? Did we make a plan that speaks to their needs? Can we correlate what we decided to do? Can we connect it to their needs? If not, one decision is that we changed our direction. We changed the plan. We rewrite the plan. We prayerfully rewrite the plan. And so here's a recap. So impact should increase discipleship. When we're measuring impact, it should increase discipleship. Our work is supposed to increase and strengthen disciple makers. And impact, the impact of our work, it has to be systematically and intentionally addressed. Many of our brother and sister congregations made a decision to wait and let's go back to church, and realize that that didn't work out so well. And so impact It's got to be addressed systematically and intentionally. We've got to gather the data, or we got to gather information about what it is that we're doing, and or what we have done. We've got to evaluate our impact, determine if we've made a change in someone's life by the work that we've done. Yeah, we've got to ask the tough questions. We've got to analyze what we found, talk about it. What is the information saying? Is it saying we're on the right track? Is it saying we need to change a few things? Is it saying that we need to go another direction? Report what it is saying in simple terms. Everyone needs to understand what impact the whole ministry is making, so that everyone understands, well, is there something I can do personally to increase the impact that our organization, that our ministry makes? But then most importantly, once you have evaluated what you're doing, the work that you're doing in terms of making disciples and stronger disciples, determine what's next. Determine a direction that you're going in next. And so here's your homework assignment. So I want you to go to drseymour.com. Go to drseymour.com. And on that drseymour.com, right over the side of my head, let me see, on this side, yeah. On this side, there are some little white lines. Click on the white lines and you're going to find an area called resources. And in that resources, there's one of those links that says measuring impact. Now I want you to use the handout that I've created to build a scorecard. I've sort of populated it with some information for you to use as an example. Trust me, I promise you, this is not anybody's church. It's fictitious information, but it's to help you build a scorecard. So I want you to go to resources, click on measuring impact. Click on the resource that says measuring impact and use that handout. And I want you to use the information that I've populated to build a scorecard. If this information applied to your congregation, build a scorecard. Keep in mind, that scorecard is going to have information from the needs assessment that you did, that was fictitiously done by me. It's going to be based on some objectives that were built by me, and some goals and some objectives. And you're going to build a scorecard. And while you're there, you notice that you're going to notice that there are other resources. If you haven't had a chance to use them, go ahead and use those as well. Listen, while they're at your disposal, if I were you, I would take advantage of those resources. Again, the whole purpose of us coming together in these conversations is not to put anyone on the spot, but it's so that all of us can learn and grow together, so that all of us can kind of walk this walk of not being perfect in rethinking Christian education, but walk it together so that we can improve our work as disciple makers, so that more disciples can be made through our work. Remember, discipleship is not about addition, but it's about multiplication. And it starts with you, and it starts with me. And so get your homework done. Go to the link, go to the resource link, and get your homework done. Tell a pastor, tell a friend, tell your Christian ed director, your superintendent of Sunday schools that every Monday at 8 o'clock, we're gathering right here on Facebook Live to talk about how we can rethink Christian education. And until we meet again, I am Dr. C saying thank you and have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.